What's Jimmy Carter really like, and what's it really like in the White House? We're going to hopefully find out tonight with Midge Constanza, who was assistant to the president until just last September, and we'll even want to ask you the circumstances of your leaving. We heard various reports. First of all, tell us about the leaving. It seems that nobody ever leaves the White House without all kinds of rumors saying they were either forced out, they got their office shifted, somebody didn't want them there. You're no exception. Why do those things always surround people leaving that office?
Because it's a very powerful political office, the most powerful political office in the world, the White House. And anybody who's connected to it is a mystery to the people of this nation. Since Watergate, I think perhaps the first time that anybody in this nation knew as much about who was sitting in a position called assistant to the president. It was during the Watergate hearings that we discovered that there are 9 advisors to the president, and I was one of them. When I left, yes, there was speculation. Was she forced out? Well, no, I wasn't. Actually, what happened was I discovered that more and more I had to answer for where my office was located. Did I get along with the senior staff? Really? Did I speak out too much? And so what I decided to do when I thought my issues and the things I cared about were going to be affected, I decided I would leave. I operated from a level of integrity that a $56,000 a year job wasn't going to stop me from telling the truth as I saw it. Right. Not in a confrontative way, but in a manner in which I could prove to the people of this nation, yes, there are people who are willing to stand up and say that's wrong, even if it meant leaving a job that was one of 9 advisors to the President of the United States.
What matter of principle did you leave on?
It was a difference of style and approach and advocacy. It was a matter of, hey, wait a minute. You know, when my credibility is affected, then you are going to, you'll affect the manner in which I can address the issues, my responsibility in this White House. I care about senior citizens. I care about the handicapped. I care about the human rights of people. And if I stand up to speak in regard to any of these groups and my credibility is impaired, then the issues will not get the kind of attention that they should.
But I can hear people saying, gee, you could have done more good if you'd shut up and stayed in the White House and played the team game, and you would have been more effective to stay inside the organization than out. You know that's a common...
No, it would be a common retort, except that it does not hold any basis for the situation I found myself in. When my office was moved, it didn't bother me as much as it obviously became a news issue.
Well, now let's stop right there. You had an office in the White House, right? Close to the president.
Yes.
How did you find out it was being moved?
Through a memo from Hamilton Jordan. And the memo stated that I would be moved to the executive office building across the street.
Any reason for them given?
Only that the space was required within the White House for those things that are important.
But that was a message. You knew...
Well, of course.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say to you. You know, the message was perhaps muffled, but certainly to me, loud and clear. And I had to make a decision, so I went into the president. We're still friends. I mean, one does not have to leave shooting, you know, from both hips. I went in and I said, I think the time is now that I leave.
But here again, we're back to the legend domain of politics in Washington. You were forced out. You weren't told to leave, but it's like if your office is moved to the basement and they take your phones out, who's kidding who?
Happen,
okay, you left your phone. But I mean,
right.
Come on, the net effect is the same.
Right. Yes, I have to admit the net effect is, look, when your credibility is impaired, even the slightest, when you're an assistant to the president, you need the tools to do the things you're there to do.
All the image.
Absolutely. In Washington, D.C., Joe, it is not the power you possess, it is the perception of power that's more valuable. The actuality of it doesn't even make any difference.
Did you find, tell us about the difference in people's attitudes towards you. One day you're in and the next day you're out. Could you see it overnight?
No, as a matter of fact, I didn't. One of the things that was so different about where I found myself coming from was that I had a constituency. By the way, not one that I had built while I was in the White House, but one that I brought to the White House. And the things that I cared about were not new issues that I just learned about while I was there. Human rights is something I started fighting about 25 years ago. It might have been new and inconsistent for Washington to find someone to use an administration's open administration policy, and not be frightened of what it might mean. I wouldn't change a thing I've said. I wouldn't change a position I took. There is not one regret I have for what I did, said, or the fact that even I left. But yes, credibility, the perception of power is so important, and it's one of the tools in the White House. And when I realized that there could be the perception because of the move to the basement and the cancellation from the Good Morning America show, and I said to myself, okay, what's next? Then the argument that I could have done more inside does not hold water. No, I could not have. I can do more as a friend of the president from the outside. I can do more taking my message throughout this nation about the things I care about, and having other people who agree with me join in the battle for the goals that we share.
But you must, do you miss all the prestige of being in the White House, though?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I was one of 9 advisors to the President of the United States. Do I miss it? You bet I do. I mean, it's nice to be able to pick up a phone, Joe, and say, hello, this is Midge Costanza calling from the White House.
Right. That gets most people to the phone, I would
Oh,
guess.
it certainly did. And if you asked one of those White House operators to get somebody to the phone, unless you told them it wasn't urgent, they would take a speaker off a podium and say the White House is calling, and whatever meeting was going on would stop.
Right. Well, maybe you're going to run for president, get back on in the main office, the Oval Office.
I remember on January 20th when I walked into the Oval Office, I sat in the president's chair, and it did fit. Okay. But I want to tell you that I don't want to be the first woman president.
Why?
Because I was the first woman ever elected to the city council in Rochester, and I had to answer the question, what's it like to be the first woman elected to the city council? Then I became the first woman ever named as an assistant to the president, and for 20 months I answered the question, what's it like? So I want Juanita Krebs, Secretary of Commerce, to be the first woman president, and I'll be the second.
You'll be second.
And she can answer that silly question.
Very quickly, do you think you or I in our lifetime will ever see a female president?
Absolutely. I think in 1984 and in 1988 you will see candidates for president who are women, and you will see candidates for vice president who are women, and I think you will see an election.
Okay, well, we'll look for that prediction.
Okay.
Ms. Constanza, thank you very much for being
Thank
with
you,
us.
Joe, very much.
We'll be right back.